Hi guys, my name is Dom and welcome back to a brand new video on DomTalksTech. As hopefully many of you are already aware, as well as this YouTube channel, I also have a podcast called 120Hz, which is available on all the major streaming providers. It allows an in-depth discussion into all the latest tech news stories and headlines, as well as some topics and areas which I'm particularly passionate about. So this is a project which I've been working on for quite some time now, and this week I was lucky enough to have a podcast session and discussion with Amy and Giles from a company called Avvoka, which is a legal tech company, but I'll tell you a bit more about that in the actual podcast itself. This video is very much an overview of the best bits of that podcast, so if you want to go and see the full thing or listen to the full thing, it's available on all the streaming providers such as Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts and Audible. Just before we begin, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below if you're really interested in tech reviews, hands-on and first impression videos, as well as podcast interviews such as this one. Also make sure you turn on that bell icon so you get notified as soon as I release a brand new video. It really is the only way that YouTube will push my videos out for you to see. Again, a huge thank you to Amy and Giles for coming on the podcast. I think the discussion we had was fantastic. It was very relevant. There was a lot of issues that were discussed and debated, and here is some of the best bits, and I'll leave Amy and Giles to introduce themselves. Thank you so much guys, and I hope you enjoy this best bits video.
My name's Amy, as Dom mentioned. So I'm a legal engineer here at Avvoka. I did my law degree at Bristol and graduated in 2019 and became really interested in the regulatory aspect of legal tech. So how do we regulate AI? Decided I didn't want to be a solicitor anymore, and I was really just interested in heading down the legal tech career route, which really isn't a defined route, and then applied for Avvoka. So now my role is kind of going between the developers and our clients and figuring out what they want, how to make the product actually work for their needs. And yeah, working on integrations with other tech tools as well. So it's kind of right in the middle between law and computer science. So really enjoying it so far.
My name's Giles. I'm head of growth at Avvoka. Work really closely with Amy on lots of stuff. My journey into legal tech and where I am, I think it all stems from the fact I'm curious and impatient. And then getting into legal tech, well, this is where the sort of curiosity and boredom comes in. I basically, I'd satisfied my curiosity about the law and thought, well, actually, I'm unsatisfied with doing things the way they are. Kept trying to innovate, and then it got to the point where I realised I have to go do this with technology and have to do this elsewhere. So, long story short, managed to get myself into technology, but really very much by the long route.
That's really interesting. No, thank you, Giles, for that. There's so traditional ways of doing things in law firms, and it's like regimented as we do this way, whereas the tech is there to help do it easier. You've got things like blockchain and various things that could speed up processes which just take up so much time, and yeah, I think that's where legal tech does become more exciting, and it is thrilling to think, well, hopefully in 15-20 years time maybe we could be in a position where there's legal tech is way more implemented in firms than where we are now.
Dom, try 2 or 3 years.
Hopefully 2 or 3 years. Yeah,
I'm being very tongue in cheek. That's what we're aiming for. But Amy will tell you it's not straightforward, is it?
So yeah, a bit more about Avvoka then, and the company that you work for. What kind of things do you get involved in day to day? Kind of what's your life at work like, and what products and services do you kind of offer to firms? And
we're a end-to-end document automation tool. Mm-hmm. So for those of you who don't know, who are listening, document automation is as simple as taking repetitive values or pieces of text. So something like a contract name, an employee name, and an employment contract. And instead of, having to go through a document and control-Fing and finding, replacing the employee name 100 times over, you have one question in a questionnaire, and then we pull that data from the questionnaire into the document one time. And so we kind of take it a step further. You can also do conditions on Avvoka. So that's, if you answer yes to a certain question, we'll include a certain clause, stuff like that. So you can make it more and more complex. And then Avvoka takes it a step further than other tools, and you can actually collaborate and negotiate on our platform as well. So we're basically the Google Docs for lawyers. So they can add their colleagues, send the document to a counterparty, the counterparty logs on, and they can add comments, track changes, all of that, without having to email documents back and forth. And at the end of all of that, once you've signed the document, which you can do on the platform as well, you can also use our analytics feature. So we can see, how often a clause has been negotiated or how many times someone's answered a certain way in a questionnaire. Little bits and pieces like that.
I guess I'll take a step back as well and just, I know that the listeners is, going to be, relatively junior professionals and students. So I'll just ground it in kind of their reality of it as well. So I guess, what we would do is, when you sign a tenancy agreement or something, at the moment, I'd say in a lot of places, it is actually sort of automated as such, because there's no variability in the agreement. There's, it is what it is. And I mean, I don't know of any students who ever negotiate those things. So desperate to move in.
Yeah.
But what you can do, you can execute it using DocuSign or something. And basically what we do is, where it's a document that, you might be able to get rid of that odd clause about the chimney or, having to or get a chimney sweep every year or something. If you were negotiating it, it would basically be a clause where you have that negotiation, and then the real estate agent goes away, fills out a questionnaire that has been set up by someone else, and then it spits out the first draft of the agreement.
Yeah.
And then you negotiate it with them online in our platform. And then I guess the other contract that people have come across is an employment agreement. Now, you may have actually been in a position to negotiate that if you're particularly strong-willed. And that may have some variability in it. So, for example, like a probation clause, the day of that it's becoming effective. I don't know whether you get a company car, all this kind of thing. So, it's basically allowing someone to go in and create that contract just by answering questions, rather than having to sort of do it from scratch and delete square brackets. Which I don't know if you've done legal work experience, but can be quite tedious, and also easy to make mistakes too.
We both have placement, and one of the things I know I specifically do is, like you said, we get a document from a partner, and it's, can you go away, here's this case file, and go and fill in all these random square brackets. And a lot of the time it's like, I have zero clue. It takes me an hour and a half to fill out one form. when products like Avvoka that you guys have would make that so much easier. And I think one of the things that I'll come back to is, Giles, what you said is, you describe yourself as impatient in this aspect, is efficiency. Legal tech just makes things a lot more efficient. And I think Avvoka is what you guys want to do. You're innovating to make legal jobs a lot more efficient, a lot easier. Obviously, you need them firms to do that, but I know it's definitely, things like this would definitely help me, even just on placement would definitely give me a better experience.
Just to play devil's advocate, how do you think we get over the fact that firms are reluctant to adopt this technology, and in particular the idea of the billable hour, and how that is a huge hurdle perhaps in getting technology fully implemented in law firms?
And I think the point around fees is a really interesting one. One thing I would say is, particularly with the pandemic and the increase in remote working, one of the trends I'm spotting is, if you look outside of the major, huge international law firms, of the kind that I trained at, the model is changing. And customers are demanding, subscription models, monthly subscriptions to lawyers and that kind of thing. Just like you do for Spotify, which is amazing to me. So I think that there is going to be a change to that model.
Possibly life after the pandemic is going to be a lot more working from home, a lot of more remote working. And I think that is definitely a good thing. As you said, going back to mental health, it's that getting that work-life balance right, and being able to work from home when you need to, but then go in the office when you want to as well. But yeah, I think that's really, really interesting.
So I think there are positives to working from home and the innovation that we can have, but as shown, there are some negatives where, as you said, mental health, it takes away that personal aspect. Obviously at the beginning we did have sort of these Zoom socials, I think, with a lot of places, not just university, with a lot of firms.
Lots of quizzes, Ben.
Yeah, too many. My general knowledge has gone through the roof. But I think it does draw away from, it's a very temporary solution where people will start to miss, and it will affect their mental health, where they will start to miss that in-person social aspect. Even, as Giles mentioned before, even a meeting in person where you can turn to someone and sort of gauge whether or not they want to answer a question, or that aspect you can't have anymore. And I think people are going to have to adapt before we go back, because I feel like this is going to be the norm, where people might say, oh, rather than me coming up from London to Manchester to have this meeting, should we just do it over Zoom? People are going to have to learn to micromanage, where it's either going to be online or it's going to be in person. And I think there are going to be difficulties in the sort of coming months, if not years, where legal tech and people are going to have to adapt with each other even more, I think.
Amy, I saw on your LinkedIn, obviously, about your OpenTenancy, and that looked really interesting. Could you just give us a little bit of a brief overview and description of what that entails?
So essentially, OpenTenancy is an open source website. Users go to our website, they click Get Advice, and then they're taken through an automated questionnaire. And it's regarding tenancy rights in the UK. And we give them a document at the end that summarizes every question we asked them and every answer they gave, and then also a bit of guidance about next steps. So what we're trying to do with it is take, because right now you've got gov.uk, you've got 1,000 different websites you have to go to understand your tenancy rights, and it's frustrating. Even like, I have my law degree, I find it really hard to sit there and read articles to try and understand what my next steps should be. So we're trying to, for people who don't have law degrees, or for people that just don't understand what their rights are, it's so much easier to just go to one place, answer one questionnaire, and understand their rights. And the open source aspect of it comes from, we accept decision trees from people in the community, from people who've studied law, or from people who understand tenancy rights. So the decision trees are basically breaking down a tenancy topic into a bunch of questions that you might ask the user to figure out specifically what their issue is. We then turn those into code, and we use an open source tool called DocAssemble to do that. And so DocAssemble is created by a lawyer. It's kind of similar to what we do at Avvoka, but we're focused less on the document generation part and more on the actual questionnaire aspect of it. So it's much more of a tailored questionnaire. And so that's OpenTenancy in a nutshell. And it's something that I've been very grateful to keep working on while I'm working here at Avvoka. Everyone's super supportive of it. I know Giles has come to a bunch of talks I've done, and so have the other teams. So it's definitely been great so far.
Just a next question. It's a bit more of an informal one, but what tech are you both using at the minute? So what tech runs your daily life, if you like?
I am a full Apple person. Everything I own is got a MacBook, iPhone.
So Amy, you're very much Team Ben. So
yeah. We have an ongoing argument about this as to which product, which company is not the best, but more applicable to daily life. And I'm definitely Team Apple.
My view is very much Apple as well, except I'm very upset with Apple because basically everything after the iPhone 5 has been trash. And like AirPods, I bought some for Christmas. Obviously I'm not wearing them right now, but it's the biggest con ever. It's like, here's your headphones, but like you don't get a cable, and they run out every 5 minutes. And if you lose them, it's not 30 quid to replace them; it's 200.
Yeah. You've led us quite nicely onto the next tech headline or story, and it's that we've seen recently and a lot on Twitter and on various places that Samsung, in their flagship smartphones, so they've just released the S21 lineup, they've started deploying adverts in flagship smartphones. So these are like £799 plus phones, and in applications where you normally use and not expect to see any adverts on the phone, and even in the notification tray, you start seeing adverts for various things, which I don't think is right at all. And yes, that's definitely that's annoyed me recently. What does everyone else think of that story?
I can't imagine spending that much money to be targeted with ads.
Yeah.
And I watched the briefest bit. I know my boyfriend watched The Social Dilemma and immediately deleted all of his social media. Mm-hmm. But it's that kind of vibes, really. The fact that you're being targeted with ads at every corner, and it's something that you spend so much time on. Like even though I'm working my laptop, spend so much time on my phone still, right? So the fact that you have the ads that are potentially persuading you, it doesn't seem right to me.
That this sort of issue comes up about ads wherever you look, it always brings me back to, I think it was a Black Mirror episode where he wakes up in sort of a room and all of his windows just have adverts everywhere. You have to pay extra to get rid of the adverts, and I do worry that that's the avenue we're going down, where soon you'll open a phone and you'll have to get rid of 10 adverts just to be able to get to the homepage. It's a worry of mine, but I think it's not right at all. I think they need to review that definitely, with having the ads show up in your notifications center, definitely.
So yeah, another news story which I thought was quite interesting to discuss was the fact that in the last week, Google has threatened to pull out of Australia, or its use as a search engine in Australia, due to new laws which have come in. Amy and Giles, what do you think of that? Have you seen the news story in there?
And something that I was interested in when I did IT law at uni was how much we rely on private companies for day-to-day life. And you forget that something that's become such a staple in your life, they're a company. Of course, they can pull out of a country if they wanted to, right? Yeah. And that's something like when you mentioned how we have ads on Twitter and Facebook, etc. It's a free service you sign up for, but still, they're a private company who need to make money at the end of the day. So yeah, it's really interesting to hear.
I guess for me, the thing is, just following from what Amy said, is actually, the effects could be pretty severe, because the whole Google suite went down. What was it, Amy? Now, like 2-3 weeks ago.
I think it was our first day back to work, potentially, but yeah.
Yeah, I think it was like the 4th of Jan or something. The whole Google suite went down.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, I remember it happening.
Could you do anything? I mean, the whole company ground to a halt.
And I was sat there like, how do I call anyone? Like, what do we do?
Yeah, same thing happened with Slack as well at a different point. So it just called, but with Google, I mean, we do everything pretty much on Google. So I think the dollar signs and how much that will cost people to migrate if they do pull out, it's going to be pretty bad for small businesses.
I was just reading that Facebook apparently are joining the threatening to pull out as well. So like show no news in the news feed when you actually go on it again because of the same proposed law. But
people might be quite pleased about that one. It's a bit like don't go, whatever. It's a bit like like Bebo or MySpace joins the boycott as well.
Yeah.
TikTok people might care. I don't know.
Well, yeah.
All those I don't even know how it classes the generation, because I think we're Generation Z, me and Dom. But I don't even know what comes after us at Generation A. I think they'd care, wouldn't they, about TikTok leaving?
Yeah.
They definitely cared when it was about to leave the US, didn't they? Put it that way.
Well, yeah.
I don't know what it's like in Australia. I don't know whether TikTok's a big thing over there or.
Well, they're able to film content, so that's something.
They can go out. Biggest thing for me was seeing that the UK is now introducing lanes on our roadway for driverless cars. And I didn't realize, I mentioned this to Giles earlier, I didn't realize we were at that point in the development that, they're going to be out on the road. And what I'm really interested in as well, and I'm sure a lot of people with a law background are, is who's liable? Like, at what point do we classify these people, the cars, as having legal personality in the same way that we do for companies, right?
That is really interesting. I did not know that we were at a point where driverless cars were. I know Tesla in their cars, and me and Ben have talked quite a lot about Tesla on recent podcast episodes, but they've got a driverless functionality. It's not fully autonomous, but it does allow you to not do anything, but you've got to have your hands on the steering wheel so that if you were to need to do anything, then you could. But yeah, I didn't know that we were at a point for driverless cars to be actually piloted and tested. But you're absolutely right, because I was doing a lot of reading for my dissertation the other day that was, what are the laws behind robots and who's going to be liable there? Because as far as I'm aware, there isn't anything that does, that says who takes the blame or who takes the for something that does happen with them.
Coming back to the point about Tesla, they have a summon feature now on a lot of their cars where if you're in a car park, and their sort of stance on it is if you're in a car park and you don't want to walk to your car because it's raining, you can summon your car to you. But I mean, I've seen videos of where they've used it and it just completely cuts corners into the wrong lane, or obviously these videos are in like empty car parks. But if normal consumers use that and they hit a child, or God forbid they hit anyone, and who's liable? Is it the person who summoned the car? Is it Tesla for the fact that it was faulty and they cut a corner? I think AI really has a lot of questions, and I think it almost seems preemptive to be talking about implementing lanes for driverless cars when when it seems to me like the functions don't even work to a very, very, very good standard, which is sort of questionable at this point.
Scary in a way. I can't imagine getting in a driverless car yet.
I would actually say that, how reliable is the average human?
Well, that's true. Yeah.
And I've heard that, basically where we are now, I can't remember, and this is finger in the air stuff. So if you're listening, obviously Google it. But I think we're somewhere between 1,000 and 2,000 times is safe in terms of driverless cars. It's something wild like that. I mean, how many accidents do we have by humans every year versus how many, how many accidents we've had with driverless? Because obviously there's tons less, but I think there's an interesting conversation to be had. I mean, no, everybody's clear that they need to be safer than people, but how much safer do they need to be really until we think, okay, well, it's probably better than a person? Because I also think, in that context where you've got a person, probably nodding off at the wheel, are they really adding safety there? If in a driverless car, if they were to sort of grab the wheel, I would argue that probably they're adding danger.
Thank you so much to both of you for joining and for joining the podcast. It's been really good to have you. I think we've had a really good discussion and a debate on various topics as well. But yeah, no, thank you so much, both of you.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, it's been our pleasure, hasn't it, Amy? It's been great.
Great conversation. Thank you, guys.